I want to talk a bit about accessibility. So I'm going to ponder a little bit on what accessibility is, talk about a little bit about the HTML test delivery, and I'm also going to talk, or at least give a little bit of glimpse into the future of possibly what that might look like. What is accessibility? I asked Google, and Google said this: the ability for everyone, regardless of disability or special needs, to access, use, and benefit everything from the environment. Now, I got a lot more hits on Google than that, obviously, but this is the one that fits best with my personal mantra. And really, I kind of live by this in terms of the work that I do. World Health Organization statistics state about 1 billion people in the world live with a disability. Now, based on figures of how many users we're expecting to be taking tests or exams in Surpass, potentially 240,000 of those may have accessibility or special needs in 2018. That's quite a lot of people. When I started looking at these figures, those were the kind of numbers of people back in the day who were in total taking Surpass, so you can see how far that's come on. That's based on knowledge of the number of special needs students in a FE college that I've really recently been. Okay. In design, we don't really focus on disability. Just as an example, we also think about the demographics. So earlier on, we're talking about younger learners, but also in an aging population, you've got the needs of older learners as well, all of those presenting particular challenges. So the idea of universal design, which is something that Richard touched on earlier on, is something that we kind of adopt within the design process. I'm a strong believer that accessibility improves usability for everybody. But more importantly, it creates a level playing field for candidates, especially when you think about the kind of numbers that we were looking at in the previous slide. There are legal requirements. I'm not going to ponder on these, but I am going to come back to them in a sense. The interesting thing about the legal requirement is there are no regulations, which makes the job quite challenging when it comes to defining what it is that we're trying to do. So the law tells us what, but it doesn't tell us how. And no regulation makes it a lot more difficult to do that. Fortunately, there are kind of international standards in the form of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and we call that WCAG for short. So hopefully we'll give you the dinner party or the pub quiz version of WCAG. I started working with WCAG 10 years ago. At the time, it was easy to work with, but it was really quickly becoming out of date. The number of devices that people were using and the kind of futures that were being imagined, it just was no longer fit for purpose. And so along came version 2. It's not easy to follow, and it's been a challenging journey for me personally to understand and implement WCAG. But once you get your head around it, really, it's actually very, very clever and hopefully future-proof. It's based on 4 guiding principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robustness. And those are applied to the stuff that we make. It's amazing, just going back to the law there, what the law has had to cover in terms of the kind of technology interface. So anything from telephones, photocopiers, and not just software stuff. There are 3 levels of conformance. AA is the one that we aim for here, and it's the widely accepted standard throughout the world. I'm going to move on to Surpass HTML delivery. So much of what I'm talking about in these sort of short minutes really is about the candidate experience. But just to make a note that we are moving into Surpass itself, so watch out for that. HTML delivery has been, for me personally, a very rewarding journey. I started probably about 14 months ago on this project, and we got the brief to work in HTML. First question I asked was, can we make it accessible? And I'm glad to say that we've made a real effort to do that. It's over 140 features in the backlog, we're still working on them. It's over a year's work to date, and I've got to say, we're only a small team, but the input has been absolutely phenomenal, and a massive, massive thank you to the guys in Arcadia. Every time we give them a challenge, not only do they come back they come back usually 150,000%, and they just keep doing that all the time. Now they're teaching me, which is great. The backlog continues to grow, but it is a process of continuous improvement as we work forward. But I'm really excited now because we're really expecting to meet the conformance standard in release 12.12 in the case of most high severity and medium severity issues. We like to put this back into the organisation, so it's not just our team. Spreading the knowledge, putting that back into the company is really important as well. So in terms of the research that we do, the prototypes that we produce, the resources that we've created for the teams as well, hopefully we'll start spreading that to the other Scrum teams. If you were in the previous presentation, you'll know are kind of many and growing as well. So we want to keep that knowledge and spread it as well. So efficiency is being found in things like reusable component libraries, and also the great effort and work that we've had from the documentation team in helping authors author accessible content as well, because it's a two-way street as well. We provide the software, you make the content. It has to work both ways. Okay, so we're good for time, I hope. Okay, so if you've not seen HTML delivery yet, it kind of looks like this, so probably quite familiar. The work really is underneath the hood. It's what it does underneath. There's this amazing layer of rich content that and interactivity that we put in there for keyboard users, screen reader users, and in this case, we're just going to look a bit about some of the accessibility preferences. So this is a prototype, and we've got lots of these, and in the design team, quite a lot, some of the time, we're not under the pressure of this kind of like the delivery cycle. So we can afford to play, experiment, and we've got lots of prototypes. So some of the experiments have been in drag and drop, extended matching, voice import. This particular one came out of a conversation that I had with an exams officer at an FE college. And also, just very quickly, some of the enhancements that we've made with the view, the kind of user configurable view in terms of the colors, contrasts as well. Also, the ability, that just takes into account sort of maybe dyslexic users, but we've also looked at visual impairment as well, so the ability to change the contrast within the view, and also custom colors, which are in the advanced settings, which are indicated in the gear icon at the top right-hand corner of there. Text resizing is something else which is actually in the backlog. It's not in the product, and what I'm going to show you now, I'm hoping may actually end up in the product. Now, the exams officer that I was talking to, how are we for time? Are we okay for time on that? We're going to go okay? All right, just do it like this. They use assistive technology in the classroom and also in the exam as well, in the form of text-to-speech. Now, the overhead involved in that, the logistics involved in that are quite challenging, especially with the financial constraints that they have to work with. And he said, why just can't we have this in Surpass? And I thought, well, that's a really good idea. And so I went away and thought, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Let's see if it works. So hopefully, he said, why just can't have the candidate basically just press a button and hear the answer? And this is really intended at people with reading difficulties. So this is something that they're used to in the classroom. So trying to offer them the same experience when they're taking the exam.
Read the following text. From which novel does the text come from? There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and they...
Okay, so you can stop, and pause that. Now, the whole thing about that is there's no external dependencies with this. This works within the application, talking to the operating system, using the system voices. It's unbelievably simple. And why can't we do that? So the whole point of trying this stuff out is really a result of talking to customers and listening to customers. After the conversation I had that resulted in this, some of the other ideas that we came up with, some real possibilities there for sort of helping learners with difficulties either special needs or disabilities. And I'm really looking forward to getting back next week and sort of getting some of these prototypes made, even maybe sort of, we have a UX backlog where we can put these things as well. So, but it really depends on you guys really to kind of want this stuff. And if it looks like something that you want, talk to us about it. And the idea is that, you know, we can imagine it and we can probably do it as well. I think maybe some of the dev team might have a few kittens when they hear about this, but then that's their problem. Okay, so I'm going to give the last word to Surpass before I hand over to Sonia.
Thank you. We hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks.